Hello, my spooky friends. This is John, your host of Dairyland Frights in the spookier podcast, Nightland Frights. And I wanted to thank all my spooky friends out there for listening. I truly appreciate it. Please like and subscribe and rate us 5 stars. It helps me make this a better podcast. And make sure you comment what guests you would like me to have on, what topics you would like me to talk about. It's only going to make this podcast better. So again, thank you so much for listening. And please go to my Patreon. Check that out. Become a Parascani for only $3, a spooky friend for $1. And remember, stay spooky. Oh, my spooky friends, and welcome to the Paranormal Podcast, Dairyland Frights, that covers everything spooky, creepy, and mysterious in the Midwest and beyond. And today, you're in for a real treat. I have Christina from Twats Paranormal, someone from Wisconsin, finally. I've been talking to people from Australia and the UK and LA. Tammy, a shout out from Hollywood Paranormal. And now, Christina, welcome, my fellow Wisconsin person.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored to be back. And yeah, Wisconsin representing here. It's born and raised. Yeah, yes. And also shout out to Tammy from me too. She's wonderful. I love the Hollywood Paranormal folks and all the spooky Hollywood people that we got to meet this year. So yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And speaking of that, if you didn't get a chance, it was in June, Windy City Paranormal Fest. I couldn't make it, but guess what? I got virtual tickets and loved it. I couldn't be there, but it was almost like being there. Christina, could you kind of relate some of your experiences there? And,
Absolutely.
Tell my spooky friends,
Sure. Well, first, I want to thank you for supporting the fest.
Yes.
So important to us.
Yes.
And just take a quick moment to kind of give a plug and say, if anybody has local paranormal festivals or conventions or anything going on in your area, please buy tickets in whatever way you can, whether it be virtual or in real life, or gift them to someone, because a lot of our events are struggling. A lot of our presenters are struggling, and we really want to continue to be able to share this community with everyone. I think everyone feels that way. So anybody who has a chance, please do that. But thank you for mentioning our festival. So Windy City Paranormal Festival, I am a co-producer along with producer Frankie, who is kind of heading us up, who's also a member of our paranormal team. And then our other 2 paranormal team members are also co-producers, so Kimberly and Denise. So we have our team, which is the Wisconsin Apparition Tracking Society, aka T.W.A.T.S. And then we have our production team, which is also the Windy City Paranormal Festival. Took place, as you said, in Chicago in June of this year. And when we set out to do this, this was our inaugural year. So we were very proud of ourselves, very excited. When we set out to do this, we wanted to kind of highlight and focus on underrepresented voices within the paranormal community. And it came together so beautifully. Honestly, I walked away from that weekend I felt just completely euphoric. I don't know how else to describe it, because it turned out better than we ever could have hoped for. The sense of community, all of the people who showed up for us and really attended in full were just amazing. It was so lovely. We had Adam Berry, we had Jessica Napick and John E.L. Tenney of What's Up Weirdo. We had Joshua Darren. We had, Joanne Mass. We had Julia Helena Hidas, who was the spooky cocktail witchcraft woman, and she did an incredible job making cocktails and kind of using spell concept behind that. We had Zachariah the Witch and Tammy and Bryce from Hollywood Paranormal, Noelle and Nicole from the Quite Unusual podcast. We had Coffee and Cauldron's fellow witches, Robin Valentine and Maria, and Parapeculiar. I mean, Rockhead Fox. I could go on and on and on. It was so incredible. And I apologize. I know I'm missing other people, but it was just an amazing event. We had so much fun. And
Yes.
I just really, really honored that everyone came together and was a part of it with us.
Yes. And not to toot your horn, but toot, you guys did an amazing job. This is not easy, folks. Okay. It's like herding cats who maybe have grease on them and you're running in the rain trying to catch them. Because everyone in the paranormal are great. I've not met one person that I would say is like, yeah, I don't know about that guy. Everyone's great and they all want to help. They all want to share and they all want to get their story out and share their love for the paranormal. They share their love for each other because the paranormal really is one of the few places that stretch across boundaries. You can live in Australia, you can live in the UK, you can live in the United States, you can live in Wisconsin, and everyone has a ghost story. Everybody knows about ghosts. Maybe some people are dealing with it, that they had something going on in their life and they're afraid to maybe bring it up. These are why experiences like this, where you can be like, wait a minute, there's a bunch of people like me that love this as much as I love it. Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. And I can't say enough about the virtual tickets. I know some people are like, man, I don't want to go to Chicago and get a hotel room and blah, blah, blah. I get people. I get it. Go get a virtual ticket. It's almost as good as being there. It really is. I watched a whole bunch of stuff. Frankie was great. I had a little bit of an issue. Frankie just got back to me and said, here you go, John. No problem. We'll take care of it. Here you go. And it was just, again, Christina, I can't toot your horn enough. I had Tammy on from Hollywood Paranormal, and she was so excited about it too. And she learned so much. And if you do go, which I highly recommend, if you can, Chicago is full of paranormal, right, Christina?
Oh,
It's
yeah.
full of it.
Everywhere.
Everywhere. I mean, you got to remember, gangland, right? Al Capone.
Yes.
He's running around, maybe still running around in certain hotels. You have the murder castle, H.H. Holmes. He was around. Different ghosts, different curses, different things, blah, blah, and on and on and on, right?
Yeah.
It's so great. So you take all that and you put together some great people. It's going to be awesome. That's all I can say on that one.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, the virtual was so important to us. We wanted to make sure that we could make it as inclusive as possible. Of course, it's tough because we always want you there with us in person if you can, but that was something that, it was the four of us running the whole thing, and we ran into realizing that a lot of people had questions, especially since it was the first time. And since a lot of people in the paranormal community that were traveling, it just so happened this time were people who weren't used to being in a big city and taking public transportation and finding parking. And we really came up with an amazing solution for that. Frankie jumped in and put together a WhatsApp, and we were able to answer everyone's questions. And then we had a couple of close friends who also are production team for Frankie in his, we'll say, day job, but it's really not during the day. And they were there to help us as well, just on site. But all in all, it was just the four of us. And like you said, it was incredible. It really turned out well. So
bravo.
Thank you.
Very
you.
good job. And to your point, too, I know everyone wants to go to the paranormal podcast and shows and stuff that are like, the bigger names out there. But let me tell you something, folks. They don't need our money. They're fine. They're going to be fine. Trust me. Zach Baggins is fine. Okay?
He's fine.
He's fine, right? All the other people who put these shows out and stuff, Eli Roth and stuff like that, it's great. You want to listen to it. But if you want to listen to a podcast like mine, or just where there's people who are just love doing this, and they're not doing it for money or fame, right? You're doing it because you love it. Like, there's no reason to do this other than if you love it, right?
Absolutely. Let me just say this. There is no money in putting on a paranormal festival. All right. But we did it for the experience. We did it because we believed in the message. And we really just wanted to spend good time with good people. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Tell me, I think there is, but if I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. Is there going to be another Parafest next year?
There is.
Yay!
Yes, yes. Yeah, we're crazy enough to try it again.
Try it again.
We're in the process of figuring out the exact dates, and we are putting together our performer and presenter list, which is so difficult because we want to have everyone back, but we also want to continue on with that message of trying to, you know, give highlight and platform to people who are underrepresented and who are voices that are maybe not being heard as much.
Yes.
And there's so many people with so many incredible stories, just as proven by your podcast. So we're struggling, but we're working really hard to pull that together. So I would say probably within the next month or two, by October for sure, we will have exact announcements. But right now you can hop on the website.
Yep.
And you can take the opportunity to secure your ticket for next year. Basically, if you put down a deposit of $50, you'll receive $75 off of next year's event ticket, which is a really nice opportunity for anyone who knows that they definitely want to attend in person. Yeah.
Absolutely. And to Christina's point too, and we'll get to the paranormal folks, just hang on. Let's just talk about this first. Support. Like I have a Patreon and everything, and really for like not even a cup of coffee. You know how much a cup of coffee at a Starbucks is? Like $7 or some ridiculous thing. I don't know. Or a $50 salad. Shout out to Tammy again. Right. In LA, you can take that money and give it to someone who, I don't know, it's going to make their show better. It's going to give you maybe a better experience. It's going to help Christina and Frankie and, Tammy and whoever else is working with them to be like, great, I can now maybe get an app or something else to make this a better experience where I can bring a guest on, or I can do this, or I can do that. So your experience is always going to be better. It's not like, well, okay, maybe, I don't know. No, please do that because, again, we all love it. And we're doing this not for the money or the fame. We're doing it to bring this forward. And the more you support us and support especially Christina and Parafest and Frankie and all those great people, the better we can make it. And we can do it again next year. So you can be like, I have something to look forward to, right? Hey, in the summer, instead of sitting around sweating my you-know-what offs, I can go and be a bunch of people who love the paranormal as much as I do. So there you go. There's your PSA.
Yes. Right. We just kicked it off, got it over with in the beginning. There we go.
Boom, we got it there. We'll bring it up later. And like I said, I'm always here for you guys. Anytime you guys want to hop on and listen.
Thank you.
Like I said before, to Wisconsin people, one of the things about Wisconsin is people kind of don't think about Wisconsin other than cheese, nice people, Wisconsin nice, snow, cold. But guess what, folks, right, Christina? We're full to the brim with paranormal, right? It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So much.
Cryptids, right? Beast of Bray Road.
Yes.
To Summerwind Mansion, right?
Yes.
Come on. To well, this ain't really nothing to brag about, but we have two of the heavy hitters, Geen and Dahmer, who have books, movies. Who doesn't know them? You know what I mean?
Right.
You may not know from Wisconsin, but you know them. I mean, they've influenced movies. I mean, Ed Gein, he's influenced, Psycho, Silence of the Lambs, on and on and on and on and on. You can go down the line. So Wisconsin is just a flyover state, or just where you grab your little cheesehead. Sure, you can, but it has some great experiences. So, Christina, let me ask you,
okay,
what has been some of your most memorable or significant paranormal experiences?
Okay, well, I was born and raised in Appleton, Wisconsin, so I will say that. And probably most of my favorite paranormal or spooky stories surround that area just because it's my hometown. I no longer live in that area, but it is still a really cute, fun little city. And I did work and own a business in the Zilke Building, downtown Appleton. The Zilke Building has a long history. It burned down a couple times, and in its final build, Mr. Zilke decided that he was going to build it out of stone so it wouldn't burn down again. And he actually purchased stone from a church that had started build and did not finish. So the inside is beautiful. It was all businesses for the majority of its life. Just in the recent years, they've turned it into condos. So when I had my business there, I knew there was some ghost stories around it, but I really didn't know the history of it. And back then, they still had elevator operators. And so, yeah, it was one of the last
Love it.
buildings in the state to still have elevator operators. And they had some good stories for me, but the main entrance is all marble. The ceiling is actually copper, but at one point, a manager of the building, after Mr. Zilke passed away, did not like the sound of women's heels walking on and echoing in the entryway. So they actually carpeted the ceiling. And the elevator operators said that they would hear the echoing of heels even when no one was walking. And they could see directly into that main area when the doors were open.
Wow.
But the most common haunting story is that you'll hear Mr. Zilke playing the piano because he did have a grand piano in the area. And there were a couple of occasions where indeed I would be closing up at night and have to work my way through the building to get out back to the parking ramp. And I would hear piano. I'd be just in the distance, not in the main lobby. It was always like an echo running through the building. The other thing that would occur was sometimes once the elevator operators were dismissed and they put in new elevators for us about 3 years into me being in the space, the elevators would just open by themselves quite often. I think almost everyone who spent time in that building, I would bet that even people who now live in that building experienced that. And
Sure.
when we asked an elevator repair person who was there at one point if that was supposed to happen, they said no, it should always remain closed unless someone hits the call button on the main floor.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
yeah, that's my
That
favorite. Just
that's
sweet,
really
sentimental story. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right? You gotta
Yeah.
love that. You gotta love that. So with your organization, Twats,
Mhm.
what have you guys investigated? What do you guys work on? I mean, tell me a little bit about the organization.
So, as a team, we really are just about connecting and having our own experience. We always say we have nothing to prove, and we are not setting out to try and prove ourselves in any way or gather evidence for anything other than our own personal experience. I would say we have done quite a few investigations around the Midwest. Some of our favorites in Wisconsin would probably be Dead by Dawn, which was our former team that some of us were on. That was our home base for many years. So it's a kind of a scare B&B, we'll say. It's a building in downtown Manitowoc, and the owner, Dawn, is just lovely, and she um, hosts many events there. She has a fun little bar that's kind of got like a tiki jungle theme with a leopard print pool table up there. And she does trivia, spooky trivia, and masquerade balls and all sorts of fun stuff. So that's a really fun building to investigate because it was a downtown furniture maker who also did caskets. And there's just a lot going on. It's right on the water where there's movement energetically. So it's probably one of our favorite investigations in Wisconsin.
Nice, nice. Have you ever been to Summerwind Mansion or heard of that at all
I
with you?
have. I
Okay.
have not personally been there, but I have heard of it. I haven't been there because it was my understanding when I looked into it that it's on private property and people are not supposed to venture out to it anymore. But I have read about it and I am intrigued by it. It breaks my heart that it is no longer standing or accessible.
Yeah, there was a number of years ago where people were trying to raise enough money to rebuild it,
Hmm.
and it just fell through the cracks or whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
And, I've talked about the Summerwind Mansion many, many times here in the podcast, but it was in Time magazine ranked as one of the most haunted houses in the United States at one time. I think that doesn't that blow your mind?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
crazy. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
And even I feel like because of my abilities, even when I've read about it, even as a youngster, when I came across, stories about it, I just felt like it gives off a lot of energy. There's no doubt about it that I think the space, the energy of the land, everything that's there,
Correct.
house or
Correct.
not, I think it's
Yeah.
probably still one of the most haunted areas
Well,
across the
absolutely.
United States.
And on top of it, it's buried on top of a Native American burial ground.
Mm-hmm.
I had a paranormal investigator on the show who accidentally, he did not know he had his tent on top of one of the mounds. And he said all night he was having some really weird dreams about Native Americans and all this stuff. And then when he got up the next day, one of the investigators was like, "You're not supposed to be on that." And he's like,
Mm-hmm.
"Why?" He goes, "That's a Native American burial mound." So he had literally been sleeping on the bones of
And
it
they were
wasn't
probably trying to tell him, hey,
yeah.
you
Hey,
don't want a nap here. Yeah,
get
yeah,
up.
wake up. Yes, yes. Well, and for that reason, I actually personally think that it's good that they didn't rebuild the home because just out of respect for
Correct.
the land there.
Correct.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
I mean, if you're going to do it, then do it right. Bring in a number of experts who can find where the burial ground is, honor it, do something, bring
Mhm.
Native American people in to kind of work with them to try to find the best solution. And then if you're
Right.
going to build something, maybe there's plenty of land. Maybe build a little further away or something.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's hard, right? You can't be like, well, is this, is that? But that's still one of my favorite stories, how, people went insane there, how we got struck by lightning. And, that's in Wisconsin, people.
It
People forget
is.
that.
It is. And there are burial mounds everywhere. And I've been at a gas station, I think it was in northern Wisconsin somewhere where it wasn't that long ago. And I just remember like getting out, getting gas, like grabbing a soda, and then seeing this grassy fenced off area off to the side of the parking lot. And I'm
Yes.
like, oh, that's interesting. There's a history plaque. Okay. Like almost any paranormal person, I'm like, well, I'm going to go read the history plaque. I march over there and it's, here it is, a mound. And I just was like, I was so pleased that they had at least respected that
Yes.
space and left it
Absolutely.
alone. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. When you've been investigating, or maybe when you have been reading some material or something about the paranormal, how do you rationalize the paranormal claim or event you're at? Or do you have a way to debunk it? Like, how do you approach that? Because there's a difference, right? There's a difference between debunking, which a lot of my
Mhm.
paranormal investigators say that's kind of their number one goal. Maybe not number one, but 1A or 2. But rationalizing the people, right? My house is haunted. How do you know that, right? And I know you are sensitive. How
Mhm.
do you go about that? And how do you
Right.
figure that out?
So I call myself a seer. Other people might say psychic medium. I choose not to use that term because I feel that narrows down what people expect of me or expect of a person. And so I would say that when I've assisted on personal property investigations and someone comes to us, I take them for their word, but I never go into a space without a release of a background check from the person space that I'm going into to make sure that we're not dealing with a situation where someone maybe needs some mental health support. Luckily, I have the background of spending some time as a young adult working in with alongside of a larger mental health facility for a group home facility. And so I do understand that sometimes there's just support that's needed there. But for the most part, I think that people are being honest and they're worried and their way that they were raised has shaped them to be afraid. They might be buying into or feeding into and giving energy, creating something scarier than what it really is, right? So if we're fearful, we're feeding maybe a positive energy with fear, but our fear is turning it into something else. So I always try and really go into it just trying to see the person in front of me, the human
Yeah.
that's living and what they're saying and really listen to everything that's going on. As far as debunking things, this is an interesting one. I love that you asked it. I think for me, I would say because we take the approach as a team and because I personally take the approach of having nothing to prove to anyone, I would say that I am a healthy skeptic in that I want to make sure first that there isn't something, that the electric isn't haywire in the house, or that
Yes.
there's not
Right.
something like that going on, or that it's not a major draft happening that's moving things inside. We want to look at those things. But for the most part, I would say my focus is really about the connection and seeing what's happening and experiencing what's happening and trying to have communication. Because whether it's a living person here or an entity on the other side that incorporates every type of entity, ultimately the theme that I personally have experienced along the way is that everyone wants to be seen and recognized and think that, be given validation.
Absolutely.
So I'm not worried about debunking in the sense of, yes, common sense, let's look at common sense, but trying to debunk something just to be able to say I've conquered it. I think sometimes we get a lot of an attitude of superiority from some people on teams who that's all they want to do. They want to go in and kind of take the mysticism and the mystery out of it. But science isn't going to move forward if we don't recognize that the things we don't understand need to be studied. And we might look at them as mystical or magical right now.
Yeah.
But if we give it time and energy and rational thinking, but also validation, that's how things move forward and we get
Absolutely.
answers. So, yeah.
Christina, I've interviewed a number of mediums, psychics, scryers, sensitive, whatever, empaths, on and on. One thing I think is really interesting is some are by touch, some are by smell, some are by sight, some are, it's the five senses. So with you, is there one sense that's heightened? Like you go into an area and maybe you see something or you touch something and okay, there's something going on here. How do you go about that?
I've experienced all. I would say the least common for me is probably clairaudience. So, but I've worked very hard over the last 35 years to and really zero in and try and elevate my abilities. I've had abilities since I can remember, and my family was always very open about talking about those abilities, and they too had had those experiences. I would say for me, it varies in the location. Oftentimes I'll go into a space and dependent on what I'm dealing with and who I'm talking to, and oftentimes dependent on the people being impacted the most might impact how I'm feeling things as well. And I just feel it's so individual. It's like asking an artist how they conceptualize their art. And I always like to compare any sort of ability to art because I think it's something that we all have the ability to do. Some of us come from, the womb and can draw an amazing picture.
Sure.
We all had those friends in grade school who were incredible.
Yeah.
And some of us, are okay, but like we dedicate ourselves to really understanding and developing the skill. And other people are like love art, but never can draw more than a stick figure, right?
Absolutely.
Because they're just not interested in learning the technicality of it. So I think it's a broad thing that I don't like to put an exact definition on because it is so vast. It's vast for me. It's vast across the community.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. And that's why I said everybody's different. They have different combinations of things that they can do versus, one of the fascinating ones that someone talked about is frequency. Like they can pick up frequencies between people. Because I had this weird thing I was talking to her about. Terry, she's the cowgirl shaman. She works with animals and stuff, and she's kind of like a pet psychic. And I thought, that's amazing. I love that. But anyway, she was talking about just really quickly, I'll meet people and I could give them $1 million, Christina, and they still wouldn't like me. And then I meet people and it's like we have been together for 20 years, right? And I said, why is that? And she said, oh, it's frequency. She goes, your frequency. And I never heard that before. Do you think people have things like that where maybe you've gone in and you're like, you're just picking up something, maybe not a frequency, but like you said, you don't want to put a label on it per se, but you're kind of like, I'm picking up something a little bit strange here.
I absolutely do. And my day job, I actually do energy work. So I
There we
am
go.
a certified crystal energy worker. So yeah, I think that people's energies like can be off and we sense that. I think that they can have a natural energetic frequency that is kind of repelling to ours or, other way
It's
around.
fascinating.
And it's probably one of the most scientifically supported concepts, which is actually so intriguing. And I love the synchronicity of you asking this because I've been spending the last 3 days researching, purchasing a frequency machine and using copper cut at particular lengths to match that frequency in creating some communication with a property that we're going to go back and investigate in September as a team. So we're going back to the Roth House, which is the Zilke Wonder in Illinois, which was the first documented case of possession, spiritualist community there that was written about in the United States here. So just a beautiful story of healing, actually, not what we normally think about when we think about possessions.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. I love that. Well, you see, that's again, I'm fascinated by that. And a lot of it is, and I get this from my mom. My mom could meet someone and she would be like, nope. And not to be judgmental or whatever. Like she'd meet one of my girlfriends and she'd be like, and I'd be like, Mom, we just started dating. What's going on? We'd always break up. And what's so funny is my kids like it. My wife, not so much, but I'll go in and I'll meet someone and I'll be like, nope. And my wife's like, you're being judgmental. Stop being so judgmental about him. I'm just telling you, it's something off about this person. And I'm always right. I got that gift from my mom. And it's a weird gift, right? Because you kind of feel weird about it. Because it's like you don't want to be mean to someone, but you get in their space and you're like, yeah, like this is not going to work. And again, frequencies and other things. And maybe things change. I don't know, but I've never, Christina, have met someone that immediately it's not working and it worked. I don't know. It's me. Maybe I need some crystals. Maybe you can help me out with tune up my frequency, but I don't know what it is. It's interesting.
I agree with that. I'm the same way. And in fact, I have found in life that if I give someone a chance and start to second guess it, then maybe let them in a little bit. And I'm like, okay, I probably had my guard up. I misread this. No, they always prove me right in the long run. That I should have listened to my instinct. In that sense, when I'm working with people in healing sessions, especially when they're struggling with someone that they just cannot see eye to eye with or get along with, and that they've just never meshed with, but they're a part of their life. What I always like to remind people is that there's someone out there who is the person that they met and they went, oh, this person is perfect. And we get along so well. And it's like we've known one another forever. And even though they're not like that for you or for me, that doesn't mean that they're not that in someone else's eyes. And so it really helps me energetically just shift away from even trying to mesh with their energy, because I know that someone else is to hold that place for them.
Yeah. It just blows me away. Her name is Aurora. She's from Blood Moon Milk Astrology. I had her on and she uses astrology, uses signs, houses, all these things, which I know zero about. So I'm sorry, Aurora, if you listen to this and you're like, you're wrong, John. But she was running through a session with me, just kind of go, I'm Taurus, by the way.
Okay.
And she was
my bestie is a Taurus. I love this.
There we go.
Yes,
love it.
yes.
Love it. Synchronicity.
Yes.
And she was, so I just was running her through some things. And she was like, okay, well, this person, not this person, like this house. And she was going through, and this rises up and this moon is like this. And this is going to come just blowing me away. It's not like horoscopes you read in the newspaper for fun, right? Today you can have a great day and you're gonna meet the, I don't know, love of your life, some wacky thing like that. This is really things she's looking at. She's actually studying moon phases and changes in wind direction or whatever, using crystals. And I love that stuff. It's just so great.
Incredible. I was born on the cusp. I'm technically a Capricorn, but just after Sagittarius. And my whole life I've always been like, I just don't fully fit that Capricorn figure, but I've never studied astrology. I know enough about it to know some basics, right? People's basic signs, their basic personality traits. In this last year, I took a little bit more of a deep dive and realized that I have a Sagittarius stellium, which means that you have 3 or more planets within like one sign. And yeah, Sagittarius. I'm both of those things. And I always kind of say like those are the dueling wolves inside of me, right? Like
Yeah.
the wild adventure spirit, but also the very practical, like goal focused.
Yeah. Yeah.
I am definitely both of those things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's talk another thing, which I just got introduced to,
Mhm.
is spirit guides.
Yes.
What is your feeling on spirit guides? By the way, I have 4 of them, not to brag.
Fancy you. Look at you. I bet you actually have more.
I probably do have more.
Yes, yes, yes. I mean, I think, everyone, in my opinion, has spirit guides. Now, whether they are the spirit guides that actually are the type that interact with you and you lean on them and use them, whether that be for psychic ability or just life focus and growth. I think that varies per person. In my skill and my mentors, that wasn't something that was ever focused on. I know it's become a very popular way for people to work on developing their abilities, is really tuning into getting to know their psychic or their spirit guides to help develop their psychic abilities. But, I've just always trusted that I have a group of guides and they flow in and out as their specialty calls them, I think is what my feeling always has been. Personally, I've never felt like I've had just one. I had one that I identified with for a very long time when I was a teenager, who was very active in coming forward in my dreams and in imagery that I saw. I've never really felt the need that I need to spend my time here getting to know them because I know that my higher self already does.
Sure.
Yeah.
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 Right. And everybody's different and everything. And to me, if it's something positive in your life and you want to have it make your life better, great, because your spirit guides are not there to say, "Hey, dummy, you're an
Yeah.
idiot." They're there to be like, "Hey, just want you to know you're doing fine, you're doing great," whatever. That's, kind of the gist I got from it.
Absolutely.
But look at, you may want to look at this and, you're doing your best as this and so on and so forth. So totally get that. So now let's get to something people obviously want to know that's really interesting. Have you ever investigated a case where the client or whoever or location where a negative or malevolent entity was there? So something evil. Have you ever done that?
I have actually my second uh, location, my business was in a space that had something that was, I like to call it difficult.
Okay.
At times, it felt very menacing, and it's probably the most menacing energy I've
How
ever
so?
felt.
How so, Christina?
It was physically aggressive. So I would have clients in my space. I worked by appointment only, but I had a space in downtown Kokona that was a storefront. It was a former jewelry building. And before that, it had been a clock and watch shop. And it would literally, it had swiped things off of my shelves, like towards us. It had tossed things off of high, shelves in the back that where there's no way that it would have been vibrational moving it. I was in the space for 13 years. The landlord was having difficulty keeping tenants in the apartment upstairs,
Right.
which was a beautiful apartment that the jewelry store owner's son, who had become an architect, had refinished and turned into a really beautiful space. And finally, the landlord sat down with me and I said to him, he's like, I don't know why I can't keep anyone up there. And I said, well, I'll be honest with you. The last people moved out, 3 months into their lease and disappeared. They just would not have contact with them. And I said, I really, they came to me and asked me if I had had experiences. And I didn't deny it, but I also could tell how afraid they were. And I wanted to respect my landlord because he was the building owner and I understood his stance on things. But he did end up bringing someone in to actually go through and bless the space, and had better success after that. But yeah, this entity, and I hesitate to say spirit because it really was not a crossed over human in any way, shape, or form. It was definitely more what we would think of as elemental,
Right.
but even more powerful than that because it definitely had its own identity. And as time went on, we came to find out that other buildings on both blocks, on both sides of the street were also having issues. And we were all able to pinpoint that it really had started when they had closed down the river in Kakana to reroute things and move and shift so they could put in a walkway there. So it was closed down for almost 2 years and kind of rerouted so they could close off a street that had gone over in that direction and put a walking path. And whether it was, I always had the sense that it was perhaps indigenous to the area, and just really once we had an agreement, backed off for the most part, and then it would just play with things electrically, frequency-wise around my space, but we no longer had violent throwing of things off of my shelves.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually had a
Okay.
client and her husband who wouldn't come back into my space because it picked up a sign and swiped off an entire lipstick makeup display. But the sign was one that was standing like this, and it just literally elevated and went like this and swiped away. And they were each standing on opposite ends of the makeup displays, and I was talking to them from the doorway of the back room facing them. So one had their back to the front door, and the other was standing, across the room, both of them looking at it. So we all saw it happen. The husband tried and tried. He went and jumped on the floor next to it. He went and opened and closed the front door. Nothing was making that move. And they just said to us, they're like, we're too afraid. So yeah, scary
So
stuff.
that goes in perfectly into my next question is, have you ever had to deal with a situation where a client became overly emotional or fearful during maybe an investigation or during one of your sessions or whatever you want to call it? And how did he respond to that?
Yeah, I mean, in that sense, yes, because I had clients who were in the space, and my first instinct is like, a frustrated parent, I would say, where I'm like, we're going to talk about this, but it's really to then, take care of the person in front of me. And my focus is just to kind of calm them and let them know I'm in control and I can handle this. So they don't have to worry because they're safe with me. The human in front of me is safe with me. And then, I do all of the work behind the scenes and take care of things. So, like a duck on the water, I'm
Yeah.
calm, cool, and collective above the surface, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. Like, with something like that, how do you like maintain, I'll use the word boundaries and respect, during that time when dealing with like something potentially like this that could be harmful, or maybe there's some sensitive or personal information that you might come through you. I mean, how do you deal with that with clients that, you got to tell them something that's like, how do I do this?
As I have gone through life, I've gotten very comfortable just setting boundaries, whether that's with real people or with entities on the other side. And so I'm very clear about my word holds power and intention. My physical being holds frequency and power and intention. And they will not cross a threshold if I say it is not allowed. They will not follow someone home if I say it is not allowed. These things just don't happen, and I hold the power to stop it from happening. So everyone holds that ability. And it takes a long time to build that confidence. And believe you me, I still have moments where I am fearful and worried.
Sure.
And I just have to remind myself of all of the incredible times that my setting a boundary has worked. And
Yeah.
when I feel like my boundaries are pushed, whether it be in real life or uh, on the other side, I then seek someone who has more experience than me or who has the confidence to help rebuild that in me.
Right, right. So that's awesome. I mean, that makes perfect sense. But a story I was going to share with you that you
Yeah.
answered that perfectly was I interviewed this couple from Australia,
Uh-huh.
and they're new to paranormal investigating and everything. And they actually let in a little boy come home with them. The husband said, "Hey, you can come home with us if you want." And I was like, do you realize that's not what you're supposed to do? And he's like, yeah, I kind of realized that later. And one of the things is this child was like being a child, like moving things, touching things. They woke up or they saw a handprint on the ceiling and, they have kids and everything like that. So they were like, hey, little Billy, come here, put your hand up there. Were you doing that? And they're like, no, how can I get up there? Because they have higher ceilings. So that's something I guess you could tell my audience is you shouldn't do that, correct? You should not invite.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. Right. Right. I mean, I would say you should very clearly not do that. I think that their intentions were probably good. As parents, they see a child that seems, maybe a little confused. I would guess that that's what their instinct was telling them. And they felt like they wanted to comfort and care for that child. And that child came and did what kids do who don't have boundaries and decided to push, those things and see what they could get away with. So I would tell them that if they still have the intention of caring for this child and wanting that child to be a part of their space, then I would just very clearly be setting boundaries as they do with their own children about what is expected and what is allowed. And remind that child too that they can obviously come and go as they please. So they have elsewhere that they enjoy and appreciate. But I would also even say they might be even able to go as far as to remind that child that they're not stuck being a child either anymore.
Right. Right. Yeah, I love that. And you know what I always sympathize for female paranormal investigators are? When you're going into, let's say, a hospital, an abandoned hospital, a lot of those places, children unfortunately died there because, frankly, we did not have at that time, or maybe abusive medical professionals that could help them.
Mhm.
So, numerous times, and see if this ever happened to you, where female investigators have felt a child's hand grab their hand because they're like, this seems like a nice woman. She looks like my mom. I'll go home with her. And they've set boundaries and stuff. Has that ever happened to you? Have you been in an investigation of maybe where children have unfortunately passed and you're like, wow, I'm really feeling this is going to be kind of an
Yeah.
issue?
Yeah, I mean, I've felt children, but I've also felt women who were, falsely accused of not mentally being
Right.
well, to be controlled, or who died because they weren't listened to and they were medically gaslit. And, I think that's still an issue in modern society, unfortunately. But yeah, I've often felt that in hospitals, prisons, those,
Yes.
mental health
Asylums. Yeah.
institutions,
Yeah.
asylums, those sort of things, they all tend to have something in common, which is everywhere else that I investigate, spirit has always very clearly been like, yes, I can come and go. But many times in these places where there's been such trauma and such a mass scale, I'm not exactly sure why. I have many theories, but I feel as though many spirits on the other side get caught in the personality of where they were when their life was cut short, and they get stuck reliving that and experiencing it when really my experience has been that they can flow and come and go. They just almost forget that they have that ability.
Yeah. Now, one thing is fascinating me too, and I need your thoughts on this because I don't think anyone's ever given me a really good answer about this. Why do you think evil spirits, I'm just going to use evil as a generic term, okay?
Okay.
Why do you think with teenage girls or young women, they tend to migrate towards and tend to latch onto and cause issues? Because a lot of poltergeist activity has to do with there's teenage girls in there. Now, you can tell me, there's a number of famous cases on it, about it, Conjuring movies and so on and so on.
Mhm.
Why do you think that is? Why would they?
So, as a practicing witch, I'm going to say, first of all, that some of it has to do with divine feminine connection. I
Okay.
do believe this. But energetically, when women are having huge hormonal shift in life, we tend to see an energetic shift that's measurable from their being, from their body. And this, I think, is also a great source of power, thus creating poltergeist activity. We see this in menopausal women happen as well. There's many documentations of menopausal women. In fact, some of the earliest documentations of poltergeist activity surround menopausal women. And interesting enough, I actually assisted on just kind of doing a reading for a team that could not figure out what was going on in a home. And they said, like, we're not getting responses, but we're getting physical movement, like poltergeist activity, but we can't figure out what's happening. Right away I said, there's someone transitioning in the house. And they said, yeah, actually, one of the teenage kids were in the process of transitioning. And I said, no, there's also an adult. And they said, yes, actually, one of the parents were also coming forward with a new identity and transitioning. Again, hormonal imbalance can shift energy. And I think that entities that are seeking control and seeking understanding, but maybe haven't evolved into a healthier place or a higher plane, however you want to look at it, they're still struggling with life review and they see that power and it's like a magnet. So protecting yourself when you're vulnerable, whether it be because you're having a hormonal transition or you're shifting in health as well. I think a lot of times we see that people who go through major health scares have more paranormal activity and experience as well.
Yeah.
And that's a point where you really need to know that you have boundaries because you do not want something coming at you while you're trying to physically heal yourself.
Absolutely.
But doing healing work, I do come across that quite a bit. And yeah, I really believe it has to do with the energetic shift in our bodies as our hormones fluctuate.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Thank you, Christina. So the hot topic that kind of relates to it is Annabelle. Okay. Annabelle's on tour. Annabelle has now, I don't, how can I say this? What is your feeling? I'm just going to get your feeling on it.
Yeah.
If it's cursed, what do you think is going on? Here, I'll say my thing, and you can tell me, John, you're way off. You suck. It's terrible. I don't think it's cursed. I think the people around it are bringing what you're saying, a certain energy, and they're kind of making it, and I can't remember the term, whatever. Maybe you can help me out with it.
Sure, like a tulpa or an egregore.
A tulpa, right. Slender Man. That's the first example that comes to my head. Slender Man was a Photoshop, weird art project that some dude did, and then here in Wisconsin, unfortunately, it led 3 girls to commit a crime. Well, 2 of the girls to commit a crime. Actually, if you really think about it, it's actually one of the girls. If you watch the documentary, it's so sad.
Heartbreaking.
I'm probably not pumping it up, but if you watch this poor girl going through some mental issues, she winds up stabbing this other girl thinking Slender Man's going to take her to a kind of heaven. Well, obviously, there's nothing to do with it. So Annabelle, to me, is a very conundrum that I'm like, people are dying from it, and now a comedian bought it with another paranormal friend, and they're doing the content. What do you make of all this? I just need your opinion.
I think that the Warrens Museum is a lovely lesson in infused energy can do major things, right? So I do agree with you in the sense that it's created a tulpa, but that doesn't mean that there can't be directive energy surrounding that. And I think when we look at the history of the Warrens, especially Ed Warren and what kind of a sick individual he was, I think that I am here for any entity that is out to expose that. Though I don't believe that Annabelle the doll is intentionally setting fires or doing these sort of things. However, I would say that there might be energy of exposure and setting things right that might be causing some of it. Where I struggle with this, though, is the Marie Laveau house in New Orleans.
In New Orleans,
being
correct.
associated with that, I don't think that there was a connection there. As far as someone purchasing it and them renting it out and those sort of things. I mean, what an amazing lesson on what collective energy can do to a haunting. I can say that I've many times been in spaces where maybe people over time have told the same story over and over again, say in a location, and I go in and I'm like, okay, this is not the haunting. My team usually I go in blind, and my team there's 2 team members, Denise and Kimberly, who do our research and our background, and they'll be able to confirm with me that, yes, you're correct. There's no evidence of this situation ever having taken place in this space. But enough people have gone in, investigated it, communicated with something that certainly sounds like it's, someone from the bordello or something that was once in this building that
Yeah.
never really existed, and they get
Correct.
great evidence. And, there again, collective energy can create something, which is no different than a prayer, which is no different than organized religion or a spell or, why does prayer have big power? Because many people are repeating the same words over and over
Correct.
again with similar intention. Hauntings can be the same way, just might not be an actual a person who has once lived, right? So,
Correct. And
yeah.
the mind is an extremely powerful part of your body that you can, people have healed themselves using their mind. People have got out of situations that have maybe been not the greatest, just using your mind and using other tools. And with Annabelle, I'm like I've spoken to people who have cursed dolls, and this is cursed. We've seen the dolls move and all this stuff, and I'm like, you know how much energy that takes? People don't understand, right, Christina? If you're
Yeah.
a entity or a spirit, to move something isn't like I'm just picking up this. There we go, or grabbing my phone. No, that takes a lot. That takes a lot of energy, and for someone to be that affected where they're affecting the way they live or die. Okay. You know what I mean? And,
Yeah.
a lot of it has to do, again, the Warrens. I want to do a thing on this. I know there's some Warren supporters out there, and they've said they did some good and they really brought it to the forefront. But if you dig deep into it, Ed Warren was not a nice person, and he did a lot of it for money, and he destroyed a lot of lives. Rain Warren, I think she was, in my opinion, not sucked into this, but kind of like, okay, I guess I'll do it, but I still want to maintain this type of professionalism. And like, well, if you do that, we're not going to make money kind of attitude. I don't know. Do you look at that a little differently than I do? Because it's
I think that a lot of people don't realize the extent of their background and their personal lives and just what they were doing
right.
aside from the paranormal stuff. And for me, that automatically disqualifies someone from the realm of things but also I'm not opposed to saying we can recognize that, yes, they did bring things to the mainstream, but I don't know how much good they actually did for it, because I feel like they fed into the whole satanic panic thing. I feel like they fed
Yes.
into all of that. And as a witch, as a practicing witch, I don't think that creating any sort of us and them, other than maybe saying that people who abuse children or people who assault, rape, those sort of things, that is an other that we don't want to have be socially acceptable. But when
Correct.
it comes to, creating separation between things, I don't know that they really drove things forward that well. As far
Yeah.
as the comedian who's going to own it, I don't know much about him. I know that he was a big internet sensation for a long time. I don't know if he has a past or a history. I know that he was up against Zach Bagans supposedly for buying the property. If he doesn't have a past like Zach's, congratulations on winning out on it. I hope you do a good thing with it. I guess, I don't know. In that sense, I don't know them personally, and I don't know that there's evidence to me that they're good or bad people, so I can't really speak on it. I will say this, though. I will say that I wish that more locations that had activity, especially historic locations who are hurting for funding, hurting for money, hurting to take care of the buildings, would open them up to small paranormal teams for investigation, and maybe in the future then pair with a team to do some sort of funding or using event by doing larger group investigations or even small things along those lines. But yeah, I mean, so if we have more investigation locations that are legitimate and respectful, I think that's great. But in this sense, I'm not,
Right. Yeah. So one thing is, I've spoken to other witches and stuff, and however you want me to call it. If you don't like
yeah,
that term,
I like
you
that
can
term.
tell.
That's fine.
You
Yeah.
know, why do you think you're viewed as collectively negative? I mean, you're witch. I think a lot of people, they think you're in the basement in a pentagram with a baby and blood, and you're like, oh, da, da, da. And I'm like, and I joke about it. All people I've told that they all kind of laugh about it, and they're like,
You know,
that clicks, right?
yeah,
People
yeah,
see that, they
yeah.
click. They don't understand you're doing, and please explain what you do. Talking to other witches, like, they've done spells for people who are, like, going through a tough time. Like, I asked about, do you do love spells? And they're like, not really. Most of the witches I spoke to were like, yeah, I mean, they're saying, like, if
On
they have, like,
myself, I do a love
okay.
spell on myself.
Oh, there you
Like,
go.
when I'm having a low time, absolutely. Like,
Yeah.
I don't cast on anyone without their consent, so
Okay.
that's just my personal take. I'm not Wiccan. I started out transitioning from Catholicism to Wicca, which was pretty normal transition, but
Yeah.
it's also a little bit of a patriarchal yuck to me once I really got older and started to realize what it was. No shame on those who still practiced, because I think there's still a lot of beauty to it, and there are many things from it that I carried into my solitary practice. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So,
but
'cause
I think people think we're scary because we're still, well, yes, but if we look back just to the imagery of witches, right? This broken nose, scary looking gray green woman. There's a lot of writings on this theory, but if we look at the way that women were punished in attempts to get them to come forward and say that they were practicing witchcraft in Puritan society, or in that sense where they were trying to say that it was more devil worship because it was something that was unknown, and anything that wasn't a part of their society and their practiced religion was evil. So when we look at that, the abuse that these women were put through, men, not as many, but and men, that they were put through, disfigured their bodies to
yes.
create the image of the modern witch, right? So that is part of it. We also know that many times women were accused of these terrible things because they were women of power, and they were trying to take their land or trying to take away their fortune in a time when that wasn't necessarily allowed. And if we go back even further, we see that we have societies where there was feminine worship, and divine feminine was the priority and the theme. And as that shifted into a more patriarchal structure, we saw that pushback. And I think we're seeing, sadly, a rise here again against witchcraft, which it's no different. I always tell people, if I'm doing a spell, it's no different than you going and kneeling down and saying the
Correct.
rosary or lighting a candle in a
Correct.
chapel. So,
Yeah. Correct. And, I love my witches because, I've always just
yeah.
loved to experiment, and just, I love just the whole genre or mysticism of it. There's a lot that goes into it, folks. It's just not, Christina sitting there and just staring at a wall and something happens kind of attitude. No, there's a number of different things. And two things I think that have endured over the year dealing with that is the Bell Witch. That is still to this day, even though it's kind of been disproved that it might have been an incestuous relationship. Yuck. I get it. All right. But Blair Witch Project, I think, brought it to a whole new level, right? That it was good and bad. It was good that oh, okay, so we know there's mysticism. And it was bad that people went, oh, I knew it. Witches are bad. Look what they did to these poor kids. I knew it. I knew it. They were hanging up these weird, totems or whatever up there, and ooh, everybody does, people.
And I will say, like, whatever, as long as we aren't actually going out and punishing real people, and we're not grooming people to punish real people who are not doing bad things, and us witches love you too, John. Like, that's,
Thank you.
it takes, hey, look, it takes a strong person to celebrate other strong people. And I love that,
Absolutely.
like, that you do that. So,
Absolutely.
and that's what we need, is just strong people who can be vulnerable, supporting other strong people who can be vulnerable.
And not to get too deep into this, maybe we could do another episode of this, but just fascinates me. I've spoken to Satanists, okay?
Mhm,
And I have read the Satanic Bible because I think if you're ignorant, you're never going to learn anything. Like,
mhm.
even if you might be reading something, be like, this is the worst. Let's say you're reading something that out there like Mein Kampf. You're like, hey, why are you reading it? You're reading it because you want to understand, why is this happening? Why did this happen? I'm a big history guy, and people every single day don't understand how history 500 years ago is happening right now, folks.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So with the satanic religion, when I was reading and I was talking to people more about it, and a lot of people cringe, ooh, like that. And I'm like, okay, not to get into this religious argument, religion on the Catholics and Lutherans and all of it, you don't have a great track record. Let's put that out there. It's out there, okay? All right? And from reading that, what was fascinating to me, and this kind of deals with witches too a little bit, is the whole thing was, hey, love yourself for who you are, do what you want to do, have a good time. There was some other wonky stuff in there. You're like, okay, you were on drugs when you were writing this. I get it. But the whole thing is, that's one thing I like, that certain religions don't like. You swore, so now you're going to hell. Oh, you didn't go to church, so now you're going to hell. And this dogma that's on people.
Yeah.
That they can't say like, well, wait a minute. Again, not to get into anything, but God is everywhere. And if you believe in God, you can worship in he, she, it, whatever in your own way. Right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I don't, because it's getting scary in the sense there is not a satanic panic, which I hope never happens. But to your point, there is, where people and different cultures and different minorities and ethnicities do something a little different. And people are like, you're evil. And I'm like, you think there's ever a way we can relate to just the general person to make them understand that this is not hurtful, that it's helpful? I don't know. I mean, you
It's
tell me.
really hard. It's really difficult because many people come into their faith, their religion from birth, and they're groomed to think and believe one way, and they're surrounded by only other people who think and believe in that way. So atrocious things have been done in the name of religion.
Yeah.
Just because that's what's been created as an acceptable behavior practice within that circle. And in order to shift someone's mind, we almost have to look at it as that they've been held in a hostage situation. They haven't been given access to the education of understanding and being able to develop their own opinions and research on things. Like, I've raised two beautiful young humans, and I would say through life, I've always introduced them to different practices, different cultures, different belief systems, given them the opportunity and had the honor of being able to give them the opportunity to, learn and understand that and use their own thought process to come into a place of what they understand. But we really have to treat someone who is fearful that way as the victim that they are of the environment that they were raised in. I was raised Catholic, and if we look at things, people still come back to the 10 Commandments all the time, or Old Testament things. And I'm like, did you read the New Testament? Because Jesus came along and said we're supposed to forget all that and then just be nice to one another.
Yeah. Right.
And yet, that's what happens when we put human thought process and struggle for power and fear that causes that struggle for power and grab, the power grab that happens.
Yeah.
When we put that on something that's supposed to be collectively, energetically bigger than us, I think that's where we get mixed up. So I try not to say that I understand it all, but I like to conceptualize the fact that any deity or faith or anything you believe in, just like we were talking before, that you give energy and power to, especially when it's collective, has energy and power.
Yeah.
So I would prefer to think that I want, and my hope is that energy and power, that deity, whatever you believe in, is loving and good and understanding and here for the collective consciousness of growth and beauty. And, it doesn't matter what you believe. That's kind of where I like to think of it.
I couldn't have said that better myself. Christina, I could talk to you for hours, and I wish I could, and just keep you here with me.
Such a pleasure.
But, again, you're always enlightening, and you're always full of love and hope, and that's the greatest thing, which is awesome. But I have to ask you this question.
Yeah.
If I won the lottery tomorrow, by the way, hopefully I did, and I said, here, Christina, you can go anywhere you want and investigate anywhere you want, or just, I don't know, maybe you want to go to see a Tibetan monk. I got an open checkbook for you. I will give you the jet. Where would you go?
Oh, this is so tough. People ask me this and I'm like, oh, I don't know. I want to pick a place and then I'm going to pick a backup place.
Okay.
So I would like to go to, I don't know, I'd like to go maybe to a site in Ireland. Not one of the more frequently visited sites, but I would probably pick someplace that's maybe a little less visited. All right. So some sort of ruins or, my second place, it's a tie, but I'll pick. I think I would want to be able to investigate in some ancient ruins in either Greece or Turkey, maybe one of the temples. Yeah, I think that would probably be my other choice. So it's a toss up for me.
Really, what are you looking for? Spiritualism? What are you looking for?
I think a little bit of ancestral connection, a little bit of like connection to maybe some of the gods and goddesses that I started my witchcraft journey with and continue to occasionally work with. And also just the older something is, especially where there was energetic practice. So some sort of religion or that sort of thing. I feel like those spaces, we don't get to investigate a lot of those spaces oftentimes. So I think those would be an honor.
Love it.
So I hope you win the lottery. Because you and I, we're going to take the team. We're going to go to Ireland. And I'm going to try and sweet talk you into Greece or Turkey. Maybe both on one trip. Okay?
Let's do that. But you got to come with me to, I always say this, Transylvania. I want to go to Transylvania.
Absolutely.
I don't know
there.
why.
We could probably just take a world tour. We'll just take a year.
World tour it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you and I will try cheese everywhere we go. Because,
we'll try cheese everywhere and maybe some beer and throw that on there and see what.
I'm not a beer drinker, but I will eat cheese.
Well, wine or whatever.
Wine,
absolutely.
Yeah, sure. I'm game.
We're down. I just got to win the lottery. We'll work on it.
I believe in you. Energetically, I'm sending it your way. All right.
Thank you.
Yes.
So, Christina, do you have anything coming up, or do you want to maybe pitch, people get a hold of you, or what do you want to talk?
Sure. Well, you can find me on Instagram under Giant Test X Tina, because that was always a cute little nickname that some friends had for me, and I just haven't changed it. You can also find us under the Wisconsin Apparition Tracking Society on Instagram and TikTok, and you can also visit us at windycityparacast.com, and we also have an Instagram for that too, and I believe we have a Facebook for them too, but many people don't use Facebook as much anymore. Yeah. And we do have some fun things coming up. We're going to be attending the Great Lakes Paranormal Convention in Glen Beulah, Wisconsin.
Nice.
In September as a team, just going as attendees. We want to support that here in the great state of Wisconsin. And then we are investigating the Roth House again this fall. And we have some private investigations in Chicago that we've lined up. So, yeah, we've got a busy schedule going on.
I love it. Well, as you know, I want you to come back. Hope maybe I can get you back around Halloween and we can kind of talk. We can talk about some different things from there.
Yeah.
So, awesome.
That sounds great.
Thank you so much again. This was amazing. Like I said, I can talk to you for hours because you're such a great person.
I agree, John. Thank you so much.
This is so much. So it was so much fun. So again, when this episode comes out, I'll have all the links to Christina's social media and all this good stuff. And again, I can't say it enough. Make sure you're supporting people, not only Christina and me, but other people out there. It's important that you do, like I said, a few bucks here, a few bucks there, or, go on social and share it with your friends. Even a little thing like that is a really good thing. Or, reach out to Christina, right? And maybe I have some questions for her.
Sure, you know what I mean? Love that. I would love that. Yeah.
Love to help.
Yeah.
So again, thank you so much and stay spooky. All right.